Hey guys, I tried doing a video outside. It's so hot here, and the flies are actually getting to me, so I thought I'd come inside. Anyway, there was a couple of videos I wanted to do. One of which was to continue on about some of the secrets of the nuclear war, or the war planning at least, in Germany in the Cold War, because it has some bearing on what's going to be happening very soon. So after the Second World War, the West Germans were very understanding about what was likely to happen in the event of the Soviets coming over. Now the fact of the matter was, and I found this out while I was actually in intelligence, British military intelligence during that time, was that the Russians were never coming. They never had the capability to actually come over. And this is what we're seeing now in Ukraine. I mean, if the Russians can't even get through Ukraine, how the hell will they get through NATO? But there was a very reasonable strategy that the Germans did. They had a policy called forestation. So after the devastation of the Second World War, the Germans went into creating a lot of infrastructure, and they did that under the Marshall Plan with American money. And part of this forestation was to actually stop large columns of tanks actually coming across the German plains, because that's how they thought that the Russians were coming, because that's what they did in the Second World War. And they created all these new forests, pine forests, which grow really fast, and you can't get through tanks. Tanks just can't go through forests. So they made roads going through these forests and actually culminating into large bowls, large sort of natural bowls, which was like killing fields for anti-tank weapons. So as the Russians would come in en masse through these forested areas, they would actually come out into these bowls, and the plan was to destroy them with anti-tank weapons. At that point, there were like 10 Russian tanks to every one Western tank, so it was a fairly reasonable policy. But there was also a process of actually creating nuclear strategy as well. And this was the task of the SAS, okay, the Special Air Service, but not the regular SAS, not 22 SAS. Those are the ones that you hear about all the time. This is 21 and 23 SAS, which are the reservists. Now, their task was actually to parachute into West Germany and set up hides, so to monitor these large areas where we knew that the Russians would come in as troop concentrations. And they were there to monitor and to report back, but they had a secondary task as well, because we wanted to be able to get to a point where we could take out masses of armor, masses of Russian armor. And the only way to do that was actually to use tactical nuclear weapons. Now, I did say in the other video the other day that, I was talking about the Lance system and the 155 shell system that the Royal Artillery had. This is different. So 21 and 23 SAS would parachute into the field with what they call MADAMs, which are medium atomic demolition munition, or the SADAMs, which were the special atomic demolition munition. And these were like the size of a small oil can. It's like like a 30-liter backpack, that you would buy in North Face. And they would strap it between their legs, and then they would, parachute in. And this was a demolition munition, so it was very small yield, but it was certainly enough to take out these huge bolts. It would level, like about a quarter of a city. And the Germans, when they were making these new roads in these areas, they would create these very specific manhole covers, which required a special key. And with these manhole covers, that's where these nuclear munitions would actually go into. And that would actually be there. They would then watch out for the troop concentrations, and then at a divisional level, they would then get the command to detonate that nuclear munition. So as you could imagine, it was pretty much a suicide mission, because even though they were in deep, well-prepared hides, there's just no way that they would survive not only the initial blast wave and also the fireball, but also the radiation as well. So it was really one of the only suicide missions I think that had ever really been seen as planning. And part of my task in 3rd Armoured Division was to coordinate these various different areas. There was another group as well that were involved in it called the Honourable Artillery Company, and they had a very similar type of role in that. But that's how nuclear weapons were going to be used. So it's all tactical, not strategic nuclear weapons. Now I want to do a specific video on that, because there are reasons why you would never see one of those things go off, and it's not what you think. So that was actually part of the Cold War system. Obviously it's like 30-40 years ago now, so it doesn't really matter anymore. But just so you know that we did have a plan, and we did have a plan to take out the Soviets. But they were never coming. They were never coming. And I came across this actually in a bar, believe it or not, in a bar in a sergeant's mess. I just delivered to the General Staff a document in regards to Russian military strategy coming through, and some of their plans and what they were likely to do. And then I spoke to a photographic interpreter. He was a sergeant major at the bar. And I was telling him about some of the things I had and some of my views on Soviet strategy. And he said, you know they're not coming, right? I said, what? He said, the Russians. He said, they're not coming. I said, of course they're coming. They're like 10 to 1 against. They got Third Shock Army. It's like huge. It's like 3 times the size of us. He said, no. He said, I'm going to give you 2 words. He said, because what I'm going to tell you is top secret. He said, but I'm going to give you 2 words. And if you get it right, okay, do your research, do it right. And he said, and I'll tell you whether you're correct or not. I said, okay. Yeah. I said, what are the 2 words? And he said, track length. I said, what? He said, track length. He said, go away and think about it. So I went away and thought about it. And I went to one of my friends in the tank corps. And I said, if I said to you track length, what does that mean to you? And he said, yeah. He said, as you know, armoured vehicles, he said, the tracks wear out when you go along roads. And you can only go as far in war as track length as you have behind in logistics. And he said, so eventually, you wear out the tracks on the tanks, and some get damaged, and if you don't have the track length to put back into those, then your tank just becomes like a 60-ton paperweight, and it's a roadblock. I went, oh, really? So I went back to this guy and I said, so this is what I think. I said, it's the amount of track that you need in reserve in logistics to be able to supply the amount of miles that you're going to have to cover with your armoured vehicles. And he went, bingo. He said, we know that the Russians do not have enough track to get even close to the forward lines. He said, and their repair system is so obsolete and so bad that these things will literally just become roadblocks. And he said, and if you can take out a couple of them with the anti-tank missiles, the rest will just stop, and it just becomes a boneyard. And that is why the Russians were never coming. And now it's interesting that we're seeing this in Ukraine. Their logistical problems are just immense. And it was always said that to win a battle, you need soldiers. To win a war, you need logistics. And that is what the Russians are failing at dramatically right now. And that's why they'll never win in Ukraine. And that's why the Russians were never going to win in Western Europe. So there you go. So those are a little bit of the secrets of the Cold War. If you like these videos, I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of different things as well. This is not all I do. But do like, share, and comment. I'll always answer your comments. So that's me, Simon Trezelyan, out to you.